Speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Very good afternoon. Welcome all. I think we have a very distinguished panel of speakers to share their thoughts and their knowledge with us, and we do hope we can have a very candid, very frank and open discussion on some of the important issues and challenges that we face in order to transform our economies to address issues like poverty, unemployment, and education reforms, which are all key building blocks towards achieving transformative economies. Last week, we set out in a short article that was published in the Star and the New Straits Times the 10 key strategic shifts or major challenges that we think would face the Malaysian economy, and we hope some of these issues that we have raised can also be discussed during the roundtable today as well. We have also formulated and will be submitting to the Economic Action Council next week a proposed new national inclusive and sustainable economic policy. And in our proposed policy, we have set out 5 key strategic thrusts that we think needs to be given greater priority. Number 1, we feel that there is a need for sustainable economic growth, and in this regard, we have highlighted the need for digital transformation to ensure that we are able to fully cope with digital disruption. We have also highlighted the need to ensure sustainable economic growth. We did also call for further deregulation to boost business, but at the same time, we have also proposed that the Malaysian Competition Commission, ICC, be given greater powers to oversee the business practices and to ensure that there is competitive practices to ensure stronger consumer protection. The second thrust in our new proposed national economic policy is inclusive development, and that is something that we've all been discussing and debating for a long time. We have suggested that the SDGs be made a central pillar of this inclusive development thrust. Number 3, we have proposed that the government needs to prioritize employment creation, because we think that generating jobs of the future is very critical, very important, and that includes relooking at our entire education system, looking at TVET, looking at reskilling people so that we are able to provide jobs for the future, particularly when it is estimated that perhaps 2/3 of jobs in the future don't even exist today. So we have to be able to prioritize the jobs of the future. Number 4 key thrust that we have proposed is entrepreneurship development. We think there is a great need to promote startups, particularly among the younger generation, the youth, and also to take into account micro enterprises and social enterprises as well. We have also proposed the establishment of a national social enterprise development plan to be formulated by the EAC. Our 5th key thrust is ethical leadership, because we think underpinning any economic policy have to be integrity and ethical leadership, and without ethics, nothing works and everything would be lost. So we feel that there has to be an all-out war against corruption and a greater institutionalization of good governance, integrity, accountability, and transparency. So we are putting forward these 5 key pillars in what we call NISEP national inclusive sustainable economic policy for consideration of the Economic Action Council. And we think that perhaps there are 6 core objectives that the NISEP should address. Number 1, strengthening national unity and harmony. Number 2, promoting sustainability with a stronger focus on SDGs. Number 3, to create an inclusive and caring Malaysian society where no one is left behind. Number 4, develop a values-based society upholding integrity and ethical leadership. Number 5, prepare Malaysia and Malaysians to face the challenges of a VUCA world, a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, as well as the 4th Industrial Revolution. And finally, to promote the 3 I's, integrity, inclusiveness, and innovation, to achieve the 3 P's, peace, progress, and prosperity. So these are some of my initial thoughts to share. I will hand the floor over to the moderator, Dr. Denison Yasu. Denison.
Thank you, Tan Sri Michael, for the words of introduction. Thank you for coming to this discussion. I think I was originally told it's going to be a very small group, so I think the seating was made such that way, but we welcome all who have come, and I'm quite encouraged that there is the second row. Don't think you're backbenchers to the discussion, and there will be opportunities for you to raise comments and so forth. I think the program and some materials have been given out, like what Tan Sri Michael said, his own article that came out after government announced the Economic Action Council. Not that we knew that such a council was coming up, that this was planned, but now it seems like we might be one of the very few initial discussions that have been organized by think tanks and civil society with academicians on looking at some of the critical issues that the Economic Action Council could look at. Previously, we have had national economic consultative councils. We have been part of various such discussions in the past where we have made proposals, plans, and so forth. I think the critical question in this discussion is, what kind of an economy do we want in the new Malaysia? Is there a new Malaysia after so many months? Or is it an old version of Malaysia that has emerged? So those are some things. In the new Malaysia, a lot of promises were made. Promises that bring out institutional reform, parliamentary reform, and a lot of themes that were highlighted. At the economic end, is it just no more GST toll? Is that what we want? And rest of business goes on as usual. It doesn't matter who is on the political chair or the political groups that are running the government. What is the ethos of business that we want? And I think that's more substantive questions with specific recommendations. Tan Sri Michael has already listed out a whole range. But I think we want to start with some substantive questions about the nature of economy. Is it really inclusive? Is it for one section of society that other sections that have been marginalized continue to be marginalized within the context? Is it just about GDP, how much of investments are coming in? Are we competitive? Are we making enough money? That's one side of it. But is that the new Malaysia and the economy that we want? So fundamental questions on inclusiveness, and I think this is, we are quite close, not closed door, but close in a small room, and I'm sure we can ask critical questions in the formulation of this new strategy? Would it ever be new in a globalized context that is dominated by certain business principles and so forth? Second, I think, is it really sustainable? And the way the environment, is it really a change in its approach, in the commitments by federal finance, treasury, the way state governments operate, the use of the forests, water catchment areas, its impact on indigenous people, use of the land, and so forth. Is it really a commitment to sustainability? Or is it same? Doesn't matter which political party, business remains the same. Is it a shared prosperity? Is the inequalities rising to such a point? Is it so much of urbanization and modernization and so forth? Would Malaysia have its model? Are we similar to others? That the poor, the disadvantaged, the bottom 40%, the middle 40%, and it's really the day for the top. So are there new contractors, new entrepreneurs, new billionaires that are running the stage? I mean, it's for us to discuss and see. So we have a panel from what I would call very senior academicians and so forth, to as well as from grassroots voices in that sense. And so I think it will be an interesting mix in the challenge to health policies, poverty eradication, taxation. It could be so wide and so forth. So I think as the speakers are arranged in an order which is different from the order that was in the program, maybe that's how it should go. And I don't know whether the speakers, I think somebody arranged it that way, okay. So that's how the speakers sat. I thought it would be really good to start off with, I think he's letting you start. I thought of reversing the order this way and let
me communicate, let me correct my thoughts.
Yeah, also that was one. But I also thought, because we all know Dr. Jay Kumar's, his writings, the alternative Malaysia, the voices from the ground. So it might be good to have macro perspectives moving on to grassroots. And we also know the work of Dr. Magdalene and Professor Yusuf Qasim. But I think we have a distinguished professor in our midst. Malaysia created this category, not just professor, we had this idea of royal professors, but the Ministry of Higher Education came up with this idea of distinguished professors who are really expert of experts in specific fields, like Professor Samsul is in anthropology, sociology, social science, we have economy, we have medicine, and we have Islamic. I think there are 4. And environment.
Physics, Arif.
Okay.
Islamic.
So there's also environment. So there's 4 or 5.
No,
Environment. No, not a distinguished professor. Distinguished, later you can say how distinguished it is. But I think it's great that we have a distinguished professor of economics with us to set the agenda of this and also respond to some of the questions that we have put, maybe even comment to Michael Yeo's writings. I came across G25's recommendations to the Economic Action Council as well, and people are responding to the kind of economy that we want, the kind of nation that we want to build. So can I pass the time over to Professor Dr. Raja Rasia, who is the Distinguished Professor of Economics. His work has been quite outstanding in this area, to start the panel discussion. Over to you. Let's give you my hand.
Thank you, Dr. Dennison. Let me first say that I didn't put myself as professor of the professor. I disregard myself as one of them around. I'm not sure how long we're allowed to speak. Are we going to speak for 10 minutes? Or?
Yes, I think
Yeah.
we should.
Okay.
And then we will have open Q&A, and then we'll come back to another round of interventions.
Okay. Taking account of the points that you mentioned, as well as thank you, Michael. Where are you going? Okay. Oh, it's hiding. Okay. I have 2 points to make. One of them is related to development. I'm concerned about how certain things are being done, because you actually asked us to see if the new Malaysia is indeed new Malaysia or is some kind of a recycled new Malaysia in some different form. Now, I'd like to see poverty being examined along the entire range of the Lorenz curve, and I also like to see, rather than what I'm putting in black and white, what Muhammad Khalid is saying, which is closer to the Piketty sort of approach, I'd like to see, say, 10% of the top, these are the top 10 of households here, the highest incomes. How much of that in relation to 10% below? Because you have, this is a question of resource allocation. These guys will have a lot more power in diverting resources towards their interest, their demand. I think if you look at that, even that changes. If you look at Khalid, he looks at 20%, and he assumes that the Chinese support relative in that sense. And there's a new dimension to it too, in the sense that in the past we only knew absolute poverty, which is looking at the incidence of poverty defined from the poverty income. Again, you can question these things, whether that income that is set is indeed the one that should distinguish people who are below the poverty line or above. These are not things that have been done by the new government anyway. They spoke about it before, but they haven't really rationalized to see this is indeed the income they should remain with, or there should be a bigger bundle of commodity items that would reflect more what essential needs mean. I haven't seen that, but I think they should do those things. At that time, relative poverty was simply seen from the perspective of Gini coefficients, which simply made an average form of inequality. But now they're looking at relative inequality by looking at that sort of ratios, that top 10% against top bottom 10%, whether you take the Piketty approach or the Palma approach. I would like to see the entire Lorenz curve, because you can have a nice Gini coefficient which may not reflect the plight of a number of people. So you might as well, since you have the data set, go through the entire range. I'd like to see that. Now, in the context of development too, my feeling is, and the minister is doing well, because she's not only on the ball in relation to what the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change has been addressing, UOBA, but she's also looking at a number of things. For competitiveness, she's seeing whether power, energy that's produced, allows competitors here to use the same cost in using power comparable to their competitors abroad. So she's looking at how, in fact, I had serious questions about that, because at the moment she's allowing coal, which obviously is dirtying the environment, but for those reasons. The second thing is she's focusing on renewable energy. And she's also actually stopped some of the dams that are likely to harm the natives that are around, like Tenom, Jali, a few dams. She's actually stopped that before. I don't think anybody else has gone that sort of distance to do those things. And she's trying to get rid of plastics to many other things. Now, my feeling is, while these are important things, they're also pluralism. I find that after the elections, we've had this polarization along ethnic lines. Right? Maybe casual empiricism is not the way to make any deductions, but I see people going back to particular ethnic groups as a consequence of the backlash against the perception that the former government is giving that DAP is largely running the opposition government. I'm not making the point that what they're saying is right, but it's manifesting in forms that doesn't look right. Now, I think we should bring that agenda back, and I feel, just like many of the good points that you and Michael made, I feel that you need institutional strengthening. You need to see that the institutions that allow for, and it's not just markets as an institution, it can be trust, it can be religious beliefs, to many things, they are all synchronized, calibrated in ways to see that pluralism is indeed respected. And wherever there is an attempt to go away from it, there are penalties, so that this direction is kept. We move forward. I feel the new government should address these things. But importantly, there's an area where neither the finance minister, nor, in fact, even more, the economic affairs minister have ever addressed. In fact, also on radio 2 days ago, I was just speaking of the Gulf from having tea. I mentioned the economic affairs minister hasn't given any statement to see how we're going to restructure the economy, how we're going to see that the trend decline in many sectors of value-added and gross output can be reversed. I've been saying that we're facing premature deindustrialization simply because before we reach maturity with a percentage of about something like 28% of gross output in manufacturing, it's declined. That figure that we have in 2000 has declined to 21%, trend decline. In between it went up, yes. While China has shown consistent rise to about 30%. Korea is about above 40, while that of Germany and the US is above 50. Now, that's a reflection to me of the quality in relation to performance. And how is it reflected? If we use static measures like RCA, revealed comparative advantage, global loyalty, the whole range of instruments many economies use, they are, to me, useless in seeing that. Because all this will show improvements, continued competitiveness. But what you're not seeing is, if we were making microchips, we moved on to flexible circuit boards, printed circuit boards, resistors, capacitors, we moved in that sort of items where the value added is that much less, and we're using foreign workers. My feeling is it's a question of what type of KPI we use. Even though I have no problems with WhatsApp and our net Rafida, KPI is all about having how much of foreign direct investment for her was very, very important. Did we think about the quality of investments we were getting? Did we think about whether that investments are going into raising technological levels of local firms, whether local firms will participate more into all these processes? I don't think these things were done. And I've always, from those days, called for appraisal committees. Because when you're dealing with public goods, which means they are non-excludable and non-rivalrous, as opposed to public utilities, because public utilities must reach everyone, but they're excludable and rivalrous. Now, public goods need to be promoted extensively because the synergy is the highest, knowledge being one of them, security, but knowledge is a more dynamic public good than, say, security. There will be lots of free riders there. Now, if you can distinguish these things, then you know you're giving an incentive or a grant. You surely must have an appraisal committee to see that that is not abuse. We haven't had that sort of thing. Things that Japan, Korea, Taiwan executed, to me, expertly. We don't have. That's why if we go to the science parks in Taiwan, you will find thousands of products on display. A lot of it uses not rocket science, simple adaptations to all, but they're very useful. We've got lots of Dajapute here among the science parks. Now I'm talking about this from experience of going there directly because I've worked with their directors, published papers with them. Not that we cannot do here. I think institutionally we laid out, but that sort of appraisal mechanism didn't exist so much. So to me, I'm not sure how much time I took. To me, these are important, but at the same time, you have to build into this system a framework that allows for participation of labor. And we're talking about, just let me finish it one time.
No, I'm just asking them, are you keeping time? Okay.
It's nice to have a clock there, so we time ourselves. We're talking about Industry 4.0. I moderated the session of Ignatius Darrell Liking before. I didn't think that he knew enough of that, but I was polite to him there because he talked about poverty instead of that. I told him over tea after that. My feeling is that the master plan that we have is not even anywhere near what Vietnam is preparing. Now, and if you simply say we're going to invest on Tibet, we're dealing with smart robots now. You're transferring artificial intelligence. You're no longer talking about skilling individual workers to be precise. We are not introducing them to precision engineering, mechatronics, and a whole range of skills which are now important in the DWAT framework that we have. We are dealing with designers, we're dealing with programmers, we're dealing with a whole range of other things, including the fact that you're controlling the operations of a smart robot in Taiwan that is milking the cow or manure in the field. My feeling is that that sort of thing is not so visible there. And they don't even have a template that shows all those elements of Industry 4.0, the shift from computerization in Industry 3.0. and to see how much of it actually has penetrated. But you already have grants that are being given out. So where will the appraisal be? So I'm raising these concerns because I haven't seen that. Maybe there are, but it's not in the master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof, for raising those questions in a whole cross-section areas to open up our thoughts from looking at the development agenda, whether it is absolute poverty, relative poverty, and then moving on to the various areas to see the impact on the economy, the changes, the direction, and comparative advantage to other countries in the region, and to compare even to Vietnam, their master plan, and to see which some of us might not be well exposed to. But nonetheless, I think those are important points, and if you have your own thoughts or questions afterwards, you are please note it and be happy to give you some time to raise them afterwards. The next speaker is our Professor Dato' Yusof Kasim, who has had an illustrious period of working at UKM and then in higher education ministry, and then he also heads an NGO called COMAC Malaysia that looks at localizing economy and so forth. So let's give a hand to Professor Yusof Kasim to share his views.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tunisian. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Very good afternoon to everyone. Friend here, thank you, Pansy Michael, for inviting me to be here today. But actually, when I got this invitation, I looked into transformative economies. Transformative economy is a new discipline. It's a new economy. So that's why my focus more on transformative economy, not just criticizing the current economic framework, which is based on neoliberal economics. Because if you criticize, you are not going anywhere, because the framework is still there, the same framework. So there is a big difference between current economy and transformative economy. So in other countries, they have gone quite far from us. For example, in Spain, Germany, many Latin American countries, or even Philippines, so they are far ahead than us when with regard to this transformative economy. By the way, I'm very happy today. Apart from discussing this topic, I'm meeting my old friend. There are 4 of us from UKM. Madeline, myself from Raja, and Dato' Denison. 4 families from UKM, but of course different. But I was with from Raja in Ikmas before, and economic faculty also. Okay, the basic difference between conventional economy and transformative economy is the way, the process and the outcome of that economy. For example, now we talk about even mid-term review of 11 Malaysia plan. We talk about very good jargon, just like transformative economy, inclusive development. But when you study what they mean by inclusive development, they are not actually satisfying the condition for inclusive development. They are still talking growth with equity or growth and equity. Meaning to say, there are 2 activities of economy there. You one activity to promote growth, and the other activity to redistribute, to repair the weaknesses of that activity. But transformative economy is one activity. So there are many cases now at the local level, particularly at municipality level, in Seoul, for example, Mondragon, for example, in the Basque Country, north of Spain. They have economic, Mondragon, have one activity to cater for both at once. So meaning to say, actually, economy is about power relation. It's a struggle between people or community, if you like, the state, which is the government, and the market, which is the business. Yeah. So there are conflicting there. But if you look at the 11 Malaysia Plan midterm review, I think our PM mentioned is that 1/3 of our GDP actually earned by labor, 2/3 by capita. What does it mean? And that means if you are capitalist, then you can earn more, get higher return as compared to your labor. That's why I think our wage rate even increase, but very, very minimal as compared to the rising cost of living. So in actual term, actually our what they call it, disposable income actually is not increased because of the amount of salary increase compared to inflation and the cost of living. So that is why I think, so we have to understand what is meant by transformative. So it is an alternative economy. Many part of the world now not only discussing but working on it. That's why in Seoul, for example, these three stakeholders, we're talking about stakeholders, local government, NGOs, and also business corporation also take part together. For example, if they have a house in the flat, here we call it slum area, whatever. So economic activity that is run, managed, and owned by people in that flat. That is a transformative economy. What is meant by transformative? You look into dictionary, it is a structural change, a change. Change is a transformative. Yeah, so you have to change. But here we maybe change, reduce a little bit, but that is not the structural change. That is not. That's why I said the framework is still the same, whether old government or new government. But they use the cliche just like but they are not actually managed. I don't know whether they do understand it or not. The real meaning of that. But there are a lot in the literature now on this transformative economy. People in US, professor from MIT also, visited Mondragon twice just to learn. Because that economy bring economy material with soul. That's the different. It's humanity, not just economy for the sake of economy, money and market. So economy for transformative economy is not just money and market. It is about the value, about the people. So that's why transformative economy is trying to transform the neoliberal, or at the moment sometimes they complement. It's very difficult to change the global system. But that's why they start from the local level. Local level is seem promising. There's a lot of potential for that, especially in the urban area. A lot of people unemployed and high incidence of urban poverty, if you like. So, as I already mentioned, when we talk about inclusive development, there should be a growth with distribution at one go, not two activities. So not just afterthought of that. So this transformative economy actually involve building community capacity and power, and also establish more democratic control over government and businesses. As a labor, you have no power at all. Even you own a company, you are not a major shareholder. But if you are a member of cooperative, one people, one vote. So that means your power, although your contribution only 500 ringgit, maybe contribution 5 million, but in terms of power, democracy, democratic power, equal. So today I'm trying to highlight a little bit on the Mondragon. I've been there twice actually, Mondragon. From school, and many activities are owned by people there and workers there. From Tarika to the University of Mondragon, focusing on the cooperative university. They have hospital. If you are working in the, for example, supermarket there, you get even higher than normal corporate sector. For example, if you are warden, you get 500, 200 euro, 300 euro per day, apart from all paid by your cooperative. They form a cooperative, now become a corporation. a number of cooperatives become work together. This is one of the value of cooperative. By the way, I used to be chairman of Cooperative College for 5 years. Oh, already. Actually, I'm halfway.
Halfway, but he said you go 1 year.
Okay. That's why I thought no PowerPoint mean I can cut the time, but still cannot. But anyway, in the case of Mondragon, actually workers own the business. We transfer, actually the transfer relationship between workers and management, because they own and they manage, so they are part of the management as well. So their view are heard, together. They create wealth in the community, creating a job. They promote local economy and based on the cooperative value. So Mondragon actually cooperative located in small city, a small town, only 20,000 population. Mana Baru is 100,000. I happen to be a board member of Bangi Cooperative, but I feel ashamed when I compare with Mondragon, But I'm new, and I think I would try to replicate Mondragon if possible. This is the largest co-op in the world with more than 120 cooperatives with 80,000 workers. 80,000 workers. Actually, their affiliation overseas more than that. In that country, 80,000 workers under the holding of Mondragon Corporation Cooperative, MCCC. So they operate in context of world capitalism, but with new paradigm or paradigm shift in terms of workers' ownership, profit sharing, and cooperation among cooperatives. Our cooperative here in Malaysia, we have more than 13,000 cooperatives. Very few are working together among themselves. They are like competing, which is not in the true spirit of cooperative. The true spirit of cooperative, one of 7, is cooperate among yourself and to care about the community, although they are not cooperative members. That's one of the values. So Mondragon actually re-event many times just to cope with the current situation. But the lesson learned from Mondragon is that one has to be resilient to survive. So Mondragon case is a case for community democratic approach to business based on value of cooperative, not race, not class, not gender, for taking issue affecting society. This is again, we can also reduce the issue of polarization after GE14 by promoting this activity not based on race, class or gender, based on society that and value that embodied in the cooperative. So I think because of time, that's all for now. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Yusof, for bringing this dimension of a more collective approach to society and so forth in the way we are looking at it, moving beyond money and markets to ensure there is some structural change in the power relations between markets, money, and actually ground people. And he is highlighting the cooperative movement of ownership, decision making as an alternative model to big business and so forth. And I think these are some areas we need to explore in the kind of structural changes that are needed in the way that prosperity can really be shared and cutting across the various themes that's highlighted. Now, can I pass the time over to our Associate Professor Magdalene, not from Myanmar or Burma, but from Sarawak. She always says that, but I beat you to it. Her work has always looked at issues of inequality, access, largely from Sabah, Sarawak, but also many of the groups at the bottom end who are struggling in that. And I think for her to look at and see whether decisively in the last 10 months or 8 months since the new government and the directions that we are moving? Is it really benefiting the people of Sabah, Sarawak, the bottom sections and so forth? So let's give a hand to
Thank you, Prof. Dennison. Thank you, Tan Sri. You've always invited me. Very inclusive in all his approach, you know. I mean, old government, new government, future government, thank you very much. It's not often that we have, when in Semenanjung, when you have a conference or anything, they will remember, you know, people from Sabah and Sarawak, only occasionally. But when it comes to election, somehow or another, we are very important. You know, the voicelessness, the poor are always invited, are only important during election. Similarly, when it comes to Sabah and Sarawak. But Tan Sri, you have always invited me. I don't know, I can remember. Thank you so much. Okay, now, when, see, I'm just whispering. Can you imagine if I'm shouting? Right? So I hope you all will be kept awake for the next 10 minutes. So you're, okay, there are two things that I'm going to do today. The first part, I will highlight some of the research that I have done, and some are new data, some are old data, and I don't think that's going to change much. Old government, new government, unless of course transformative economies is coming in. Other than that, to me, not much will change. Okay. Number two, there are things. I think about 5 points that I would like to highlight, and I do hope, and I've been talking about it for quite some time, and hoping that the new government will look into it. Okay. So please bear with me. Know what I mean? Okay. Growth. Prof. Raja, a good friend, my colleague, Prof. Dato' Yusof was my lecturer, so you can imagine how young we are. Okay, so 4 issues I will look into: economic growth, poverty, inequality, and the food for thoughts. These are things that I want us to look into later. Right, yeah, I love Sabah and Sarawak. We are always what happened? Line putus. I thought only in Sabah and Sarawak this happened, but also in KL also happening. So,
especially when you talk about Sabah.
I know somehow or another. Okay, so if you look at it in terms of economic growth, I think some of our friends here may not be able to see it, but you know, if you look at it, Sabah and Sarawak, we have very high rapid. We're just like many other states, not that far behind. And in terms of our contribution to the state, in terms of GDP, although we don't like figures and everything, it kind of gives us some indication. 9.8% in terms of our share in GDP. And in terms of our, all the savings that the state has, we are one of the richest in the country. Yeah? Poverty. Yes, we have gone down. I love these figures. Figures don't mean anything if you ask to the people on the ground. It is only figures. If you ask them what it is, they don't care. They said, hidup kami lagi berinsak. Berinsak means it's not even difficult. Berinsak means it's really like sansara. Yeah, the Malay word is sansara. So the English word, I don't know what to call that. Tough. Okay. Tough, whatever. We suffer. Okay. Now, yes, the incidence of poverty is still very high in the 2 states. I love figures, so you can just have a visual effect of it. These are figures that you know. These are data that you all know. But what I'm trying to do here is to highlight the fact that I don't think things will change that much. That is what I'm feeling. Okay? Yes, in terms of the incidence of poverty, in Malaysia, 0.4%, orang asli is the highest. Bumi Putra Sarawak, we are quite okay. We are very happy with this data. But statistics don't lie, only statisticians do. Okay? This is the latest figure. I posted this in, I was interviewed, they just announced this. The 25 poorest districts in Malaysia. So what I did, being naughty, I took 10 top districts, and 7 out of the 10 poorest districts in Malaysia is from Sarawak. And all the YBs somehow in the Mandarin become so popular, they start looking for my handphone and asking me, Mandarin, how did you get all these figures? I don't think your research is correct. I just pretend nothing happened. So for once, I don't want to respond to the YBs. So 7 out of 10 are from Sarawak. Where is it? Tongon and Pitas is from Sabah, and the other one is from Kelantan. So the poorest district, the top 10 poorest district in Malaysia, the latest data that we had was from the poorest Pakan. And he used to, the Pakan guy, the Pakan YB was really, really very angry. He posted on the newspaper. But never mind, I love these Sarawak YBs. Let them be happy with what they're doing. Okay? But I love to show this because I want to show that despite what Sarawak is, okay, what people think about Sarawak, we are so rich. However, why is it that the 10 poorest districts is from Sarawak? Jadi, yeah. See, but never mind. Okay. Now, in terms of median household income, look at us. So, meaning to say, our income is far below the national poverty and the national median. This is median, and then we have also this is the mean household. But it means that the income earners in Sarawak are not earning as high. So, don't be surprised if I were to mention that about 30,000 of Sarawakians are in Johor. And recently, we've heard in the news, 47 who were caught in Kampuchea, 43 are from Sarawak, and the others are from Sabah. And these are youth. So I don't know what denial are we going to do. No? Alright? So that is basically what is happening. B40, we are number 3, Sarawak, B40. No, but these are just figures. Okay? This one is also posted. This one is how low our income here in Malaysia. So Tan Sri, you are right when you talk about one of the pillars that you're looking into is in terms of employment. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, we need employment, we need income. And Prof. Raja was saying, what kind of investment is coming into our country? We are talking about Peninsula. I cannot imagine what kind of investment is going to in Sabah and Sarawak. Okay? Now, in terms of inequality, it's about opportunities, it's also about infrastructure. Look at this. Although this is an old data, I don't expect this to change much. In terms of, although you said that GD may not be a good reflection, but to a certain extent, it does show for the general public, they may kind of, we get an indication, inequality has sort of reduced, but it is inter-ethnic. What about intra-ethnic? Within the Malays, within the poor Malays, the middle Malays, and the top Malays, it has probably widened. Similarly, in terms of Chinese and Indian. So we are, in the old days, when you look at our politics, it has always been CIMB, Chinese, Indian, Malaysian, and Bangladesh probably. or lain-lain, they call now CIMB. So because we Sarawakians are always classified as lain-lain, so it's not CIML. Okay? In terms of assets, the non-Malay Bumi Putra, which refers to the Sabah and the Sarawakians, they have like 57 of them don't have financial assets. And in terms of rural savings, these are really issues of deep concern to us. What in terms of safety net? What do they have? I always highlight this because I want the new government to look at this figure. It may be 97, it may be 92, but the fact is that the reality is that it is really, there is inequality in the country. In terms of civil service, we don't have latest data, but whatever data that we have that is posted, you see, we are not only poor in terms of anything else, even data is also poor, because we are always lumped together with the Malays. So when we are lumped together with the Malays, somehow our achievement, and including the Orang Asli, somehow or other our data is, really good. No, because we have done here so much. But when you start breaking it up, desegregate the data. So this has always been a point of contention. Even right now in the state, there is already how many minutes? 2 minutes. Okay, I'll do it, don't worry. Okay, this is electricity. We still have a lot of, about 1%, or in Sabah and Sarawak, no electricity. And you talk about schools, dilapidated schools. You talk about homes, pipe to water homes. Half of them are still in the rural areas, do not have pipe water. I think this one, started growth. Okay, Karen, I love it. So she came to see me. Someone and said, I really want to talk to you about health. So these are some of the data that we have on stunted growth and also underweight. These in economics, people like me suddenly look into, because I thought that it's always been health. So I thought that I really don't know how to measure it. But somehow or another we have the data. Okay, I just want to show this this is broadband. Now these are things I want to show you. Now these are, I love taking photographs. I just like Prof. Anderson, but this is very sophisticated camera. I only use handphone. Okay, our school. So that one is our education. I am in the Jatan Kuasa right now. We are really looking into dilapidated school. We have more than 1,000, and I cannot understand this to happen because Sarawak and only recently Sabah, Minister of Education. We have had a Ministry of Education for the last God knows how many years, and I cannot imagine why is it that we have dilapidated school. Okay, that's one question. Look at our children. Okay, sorry. That is the number of schools in Sarawak. This is the latest figure. This is no, this is not Ruban Ayah. This is the school for the teachers in Kapit. And Kapit is the home of the Deputy Minister of Rural Development, the previous one, YB Alex. I'm not going to blame him, it's okay. So look at this. And this one, Baru Bian, he did a study. Students have to fight over the limited number of free textbooks made available to the school, most of which are already well used and taught. Because they are poor, they are so used to having difficulties, so having another textbook to them is such a blessing. Whereas here, people just throw away their textbooks and everything. So if you have anything to donate, please, don't throw away your textbook. These are the mattresses. This is in Miri, and Miri is one of the richest. Okay, I'll just go on. Schools. Look at this one. I took these photos. Statelessness. Cikgu Ayu, we are working a lot about undocumented children in childcare. But if you go to Sabah and Sarawak, there's more to it. Yeah? Aduh, cannot gerak already. Okay, this is my Padang friends. So they share, 5 of them sharing that house, talking about living condition. Ooh, I think you guys purposely do this. You block it according to time. I love it. Ooh, now, Karen, this is how we carry our sick from Kapit right up to Cebu. We don't have any more water ambulance, because JPA have they took away the driver ambulance, water ambulance. So because Semenanjung don't need it anymore, so it is across. So we don't have anything, so they bring all this poor man. I found him sitting there, and when I posted this on Facebook, oh my God, the YB was really not happy. This is the way to our clinic. This is the issue of community. I just want to show our transport, fantastic. We love our transport. Look at that. We sit up, we sit inside, and sometimes outside, down also, because there are 3 layers there: first class, second class, and third class. We do have that. And this is something I'm very passionate about. Just give me 2 minutes. Culture, we have lost that. Deforestation, everything. These are all gone. And our, this, okay, gone. This is the logging rods. Look at that. It's all gone. What our education system? What is our education system doing about it? This all will be gone in the next 10 years. We don't have that anymore. And I was so passionate when I talked to YB Mazli. He said, "Madam, can you just tone it down?" He said, "I am very passionate because it's like a library to me. Once all these covers are gone, we don't have them anymore, because what we have now is Malay Muslim culture, and we are not Malay Muslim. Okay, that's mandate. No, I'm not booking any one of those. Okay." Look at the Iban, just go and bring the paddy planting to the urban areas. So these are issues. Okay, we are tourism products. Look at our living condition, it's still the same. Okay, just want to show to you. This is just behind that big building in Kuching. That what they want Undangan Negeri. Okay, and this is just like 10 minutes away. The contrast of development. Yes, this is in Cebu. This house costs 150 ringgit. And who lives there is the rural urban migrant. Okay. Now, allow me. This is the pipe water. Yes, we have pipe water, but we have timetable when to have it. So you really need to know what color is your pipe. Okay, but welcome to Bakun. But please ignore that tamak puasa. Pretend you didn't see that. That is when we talk welcome to Bakun. Okay. So the last, this is our dams, and you mentioned that our pemusnahan hutan, these are all gone. And we must also look into this issue, which has not been resolved. Issue of NCR land. If Dayak must die, Dayak die defending their lands. Now the last part I want to look, no, it's not because they love BN, no. There's a big hole there. So they need to cover it using the BN flag because it was free. So no. Okay, food for thought, 5 more slides. 1. What kind of development? Projects for who? So this is what we call, we meet the targets, but we miss the people. Yusof, you said humanized growth. That's number 1. Number two, I want to look, what kind of development model? Is it one size fits all? Is it a Malaya-based model, or we need a model for Sabah and Sarawak? Or we have this dynamic thing called Melayu, Bumi Putra, Pribumi, natives of Sabah and Sarawak. We are not the same. Okay? So, is it a state-based need? Is it based on what we need? Our rights and things. Number 3, development trust. Development is not sedekah. Development is not gifts. Development is the right of the people. So we are not, our community are not passive recipients. They need to be engaged. That's why I love Yusof, Dato' Yusof, when you mentioned about transformative. So it is a right basic development. 2 more slides. One and the last one, basic amenity. This one we know. I want it to be, it need to be expedited. Do not discriminate them just because they don't vote for the government. It is their right. And the last one, education. What we have now is what we call, it's a very urban based, a very urban bias kind of education. 21st century learning, don't talk about 21st century learning in Sabah and so on. You look at what we have now. We don't have electricity. And when we were given the solar energy, what happened? 24 million just burned down the drain. So it's education for all. So sustainable livelihood, and for the future, the kind of development that we want is a development that caters for the need, that was inclusive. Tansri, I'm so glad that you included that in, and you're talking about sustainability. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doc. I understand why Tansri Michael keeps inviting you back.
We haven't seen any changes.
Now, I think what has been revealed through this PowerPoint and pictures is a reality check on the ground between political rhetoric, all kinds of things. There's a reality check to the pictures and the reality, and I think 3 key themes come out in spite of a lot of the points. One is the multi-dimensional nature of the issues. I think that's coming across clearly. You can't just fix the economy without fixing other aspects. They are so interrelated. So I think Madeline brought to us that it's not just the economy. You need to look at education, you need to look at the housing, look at the reality of it from a regional perspective of Malaysia. And I think that's a dimension. So it's not just income. It is all these. So to fix it, you need to. So I think people in government would say, well, you guys previously had 60 years, you didn't do much, you don't press us so fast. But I think the second point that comes out, which has been highlighted before in many of the forums organized by CASI, is the right to development agenda. Human rights and a right to development which centers on needs-based is fundamental to the ideology that we are talking of. While some have pushed race, class, intra, all the things, but I think the needs-based to specific targeting, and somehow we're not getting the targeting right from the pictures that are highlighted. And I think the third point that comes out very strongly is the need for disaggregated nature. So just because KL is high up on all the index doesn't mean everyone in KL is doing extremely well. So the urban poor, the disadvantaged in terms of urban settlers in very bad housing, in many of the urban locations could be part of the process. So the economy is not just about dollars and cents. I think what's coming out is it's much more. So how do people take control of this economy? If that's the economy we want in this new Malaysia, or are we far away from that dimension? Now we'll come to our final speaker, Dr. Jayakumar Devaraj. His writings have been clear, and as a member of parliament he has highlighted many of these themes, and I thought it would be refreshing. I know he often criticizes my thoughts because I tend to feel our development planning is good and so forth. But I think we need to hear from the grassroots, from the movements that he has led, another side as well, very much like Dr. Madeline, but also from a policy dimension. Are we getting it right? Why is it in the new Malaysia the economic policies are not coming to what was formally promised? Doctor, over to you. Let's give a hand.
First of all, thank you, Dr. Garrison and Tansri Michael, for inviting me. Your question was, are we getting it right? I think I'm afraid not. You're getting it very wrong. When we talk about transformation, transformation actually means a massive change, a really fundamental change. So what are we changing? What is wrong with the system? We've got to identify that first. Something is wrong and we want to change that particular thing. We can talk about a lot of other things, but everyone is not mentioning the fundamental thing. And if you ask me what is wrong with the world today, is that the global elite, the 0.01%, have got it too much their way. The whole system is skewed towards them. And that is the fundamental problem. So you want to change it means you've got to confront the privileges, the entrenched privileges of this very powerful set of people who control most of our governments, who control the WHO, who control the World Trade Organization, control IMF. They're there everywhere. You've got to challenge them. Not the other things, all the rest are frills. So you have to take this on first. And since the 1990s, when it became to a unipolar world, a lot of rules got changed that strengthened the hand of the really super rich, the billionaires. For example, now we have global chains. It is not possible for factories in Penang to demand with the global, the MNCs and say, I want to pay more, I want a larger share, I want to price my goods more. Goods in Penang, let's say semiconductor goods and all that, the components, are maybe being sold at the factory gate at about 1/5 the price the same good will cost in America. That's why they bring them here. But in the Penang, our local businessman, entrepreneur in Penang says, no, I want to bid more. They'll say, no, if you don't give us at this rate, we'll go to Thailand or we'll go to Vietnam. So these big MNCs are so powerful, it's called disarticulated production. They put production in different places, and if you talk too much, I'll shift it somewhere else, I'll just cut out your orders, I'll go somewhere else. So you take it. So because you're getting less, you cannot pay more for your worker. There's a limit to what you can do. So I won't blame local Malaysian capitalists. It's not that they are that greedy. It is the super capitalists up there who is saying, take it or leave it. If you don't want this, I'll go somewhere else. I want the product at this rate. That's the global chain. So I think let's say we get angry with local. So I talk to my own party guys as well. I said, there's no point being so angry with our own businessmen because they are also a part of the cog. And the way they also getting screwed up by the fellow on the top. And the fellow on the top actually is not doing it. The fellow on the top is going away, giving humanitarian aid and talking about sustainable development. He's got a group of very well-trained accountants, lawyers and all that to use the system to the best benefit to make the most money for him. And that's why they pay super high salaries. So that these big guys or the billionaires can go around and smile and give checks here and there, and then we say, let's work this private partnership. It's bullshit, really, We've got to talk about how they're escaping taxes. Look at Malaysia. Our tax rate was 40% in the 80s. Now it's 24% corporate tax. And we are saying, Guaneng said, sorry guys, we'll try and lower it next time. I can't do it now. We'll lower it next time. Because Singapore is 18%. So in ASEAN, we are competing among ourselves to get FDI, we lower tax. So we've got to question this among ourselves. This is the thing you've got to address. If you keep lowering tax, then the amount of money you have for distributive programs, for welfare programs, for basic, maybe like universal pension, for example, putting more into healthcare. You don't have the money, because it is scared. But these are the things that we really got to address. The point is the global filthy rich have got too much going towards them. We've got to challenge that. And neither the PM or the PH, even most academicians, don't want to talk about that. And that's the problem. That is the problem. We've got to talk about those issues. And the governments, the way in which politics is funded. You see, politics is expensive. You need to run your party, you need to have your building, you need to have your staff, to have material. And our political parties are funded by the corporations. So are we really democratic? Of course we've got to talk about people like here, but ultimately we've got to be responsible to the economy. Same thing in America as well. The political system in the whole democratic world, is democracy and all that, is very, very, very influenced by the richest of the rich in this world. So you've got to address, this is what we want to transform. Once you put the problem up there, then we can talk about measures. But if we don't want to talk about the elephant in the room, then it's going to go here, there, try to be nice to everyone. It cannot be nice to everyone. There's injustice, the system is imbalanced. You've got to call it out. I'm not saying against businessmen. I think it's the role for the market, but not for monopolies like this. And the super rich, and if you look at Oxum, they say it every year. The rich have got richer this year. The billionaires have got so many more of the world's income. Now the top 5 fellas have got more than the bottom 50%. You know, that kind of figures, again and again you hear from, what's going on? That reflects what I'm saying. But we are not talking about it. We're not discussing it. There are opportunities, you know. You look now, this trade war between America and China. There are opportunities there for countries like Malaysia and ASEAN. Because to circumvent those trade barriers between these two guys, maybe it will make sense to do some of their business here, you know, put things together. But what we must do is talk to Vietnam and say, hey, you know, you don't go and cut your tax rate, I won't cut my tax rate. Let's get the maximum out of this for ourselves. Call Thailand and say, hey, you also don't cut down, okay? Let's not kill each other, cut down on things to pull them in, give them more and more benefits. We can say, as a group, as ASEAN, let's try and get a bit of that value being created here for our people. So we can use it for our welfare programs. We've got to start talking like that, but to do that, we've got to identify the problem. You know, identify. We want FDI fine, but why at such low terms? Terms that keep getting worse. So these are the kinds, we're talking of transformation, that is transformation. Look at our TPPA. Who wrote the TPPA? The US together with the top corporations, they stepped with these top guys like MNCs and wrote TPPA. And look at some of the deals they have in the TPPA, which luckily it's not signed, but they're saying things like, countries cannot put performance requirements. You cannot say you must source so many percent of your raw materials from this country. You cannot say you must have so many percent of engineers. You cannot say you must transfer so much technology. All that is written into the TPPA. Who writes those kinds of things? And we go along with that, you know. Because thank God Trump got elected. One of the good things he did was not sign the TPPA, you know. But you know, the TPPA is so one-sided. You know, I think we got to see basically this really fat cat businessmen are not very clever, because what they're doing is they're creating a tremendous imbalance between investment capacity and consumption. You know, Keynes would have told you we need an aggregate demand to keep the economy growing. If you don't have aggregate demand, not enough investment, not enough jobs, the economy won't grow, there are problems. So when the top 1%, the top 0.01% get too much of the wealth, there's investment capital. Not enough investment in the real economy because people don't have enough money. So it goes into speculation, it goes into property bubbles. So actually, you take the fact that this 0.01% are getting too much, and if you can link it to many of the things, the fact our young people in this country can't get houses at reasonable prices has got some link to that. You know? So I think we got to, first of all, identify the elephant in the room. The 0.01% have got too fat. And then we got to say, how do we do this thing? How do you work? I mean, of course, you can't challenge them straight away. I mean, you know, they are big. You can't say we're going to, you know, you got to do it in a judicious way. But first, got to identify the problem. And the question he asked, have they got it right? No, they haven't, because they haven't yet identified the problem. You know, because they're scared to say those things, or maybe they can't see it. But that's what I think we've got to say. Let's talk. What is the real problem? And I would say the biggest problem is the global imbalance of wealth that arises from too much power, too much benefits for the global 0.01%. And we've got to start thinking of how we address that. And I think one last point I would say is, for the first time, for the last 200 years, the working people in Europe and America will be on our side. Because they also cannot already. At one point in the past, they got a welfare state. They came and screwed us all up, but their own working class supported them, because they were going to give something to them. But now now they can use us as labor, screwing their own working class up. That's why we have Bernie Sanders, you have Trump, you have Jeremy Corbyn, you have Brexit. Their people also are getting angry. So I think we have a truly global movement to rein in the super rich, have better tax system, prevent transfer pricing, prevent tax havens, tax avoidance, and these things we'll start talking about. Yeah, stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Doc. I think from looking at local, ground, sub-regional issues, we are looking at a massive global agenda as well, and bringing that dimension in is a very important component. So it's not just fixing something in Sabah or Sarawak or on this side. It's interlinked at the global level. And Dr. Jayakumar also highlighted this global movement, and I think in the programs that were distributed, there is a movement towards Barcelona 2020, initiated by civil society around the world, and largely from Spain, not just because of the Mondragon example, but Barcelona and the Europeans. And I think central to it is they feel alienated from the super rich from their own countries who have sort of affected them, and they are taking hold of the economy, and they are putting up what is called a World Social Forum on Transformative Economies, which we run not by business people, but alternative business people where people are in control. Have a look at it. They have their website. They're calling people to be part of the process, global process, and that is something that's come out. And I think from what was said, I overheard what Professor Russell said to me just now. Is it an elephant or a whale? A whale in the swimming pool. With the whale coming out and the elephant in the room, or a whale in the swimming pool we are struggling with. Now, we have heard the speakers from various dimensions highlighting various issues that are important, that are critical. There seems to be a consensus that for the new Malaysia, there is a major task ahead, and we have this action committee and so forth. But people's participation and involvement, their ideas, their ownership, holding this government to accountable is equally important. Now, we can open to a time of comments. I think we would say, don't be too long. You can ask a question, you can make a comment, but we are saying you can't take 10 minutes to make a comment. But we want to hear as many voices. And afterwards, if there are direct questions, then I could see. If there are many questions, then I would pass to the panelists. If not, the panelists will have an opportunity to respond. You could make specific to what they have highlighted, or you could highlight areas that are necessary. Do we have a cordless mic? Okay. Woon will help us with, I thought there was only one mic in the room. Like one whale in a small swimming pool, with whether we had long enough wire to reach everyone, but we've got cordless. So please state your name, where you're from, share your view, and that would be helpful. Can I have a yes? If you indicate who you are, from where, and share your views.
Assalamualaikum and good evening everyone. My name is Rahayu. I'm from Buku Jalanan. I'm from Buku Jalanan Large, but then I represent Buku Jalanan Chowkit too. We always have this talk with Buku Jalanan members. All of us are actually young. I'm acting as the eldest there. Because we thought that we're not being poisoned by power, by wealth, by money yet. And we hope not to be poisoned by that. So we always say that let us form a political party. And then they were saying that who would fund us, who would vote for us. Malaysian wouldn't vote for people who didn't shower the vote money. Which I think true. Even the poor are not going to trust in the things that we want to do because we're too idealistic. But I like the fact that people who talks about economy, I don't talk about economy, but we are in the ground. I like the way that Tan Sri said things on ethical leaderships, on humanizing economy, but how far are people so sincere when they talk about sustainable development, when they talk about humanizing economy? How far do you guys think? I think especially on to Professor Dr. Raja, Professor Dr. Mandarin that I love so much, Professor Dr. Yusuf and Dr. Jayakumar. How
She
much?
left me out, but that's okay.
What is the level? What is the level of willingness of economic players in humanizing economy? How much do you guys think they are willing to put away wealth and power and give it back to people? You know, that's the only way I think that we can get out of poverty. That equation.
Thank you very much. I think we'll get a few comments. Yes. So, this will be faster than yours.
Thank you. Zara Pang from WWF Malaysia. So from the environmental sector, when we talk about transformative economies, we talk about circular economies, wealth to waste, the other way around, waste to wealth, less resource intensive economies, looking at moving wholesale to renewable energy by 2050. And I'm just wondering how you see, or whether you've thought about how this fits into the economies that you're talking about now. So, for example, the cooperatives, the change in basically when we're taking away the wealth from the global elite. How does this fit into that? Thank you.
Thank you, Zahra, from environmental point of view. Yes.
This thing has been burning in me for a long time. I'm glad Dr. Jayakumar
You're very popular, but we need to know who you are.
Richard Yeo from Electoral Reform Committee. No relation of Tan Sri, but anyway, I really feel Dr. Jaya's passion, and basically, I think the point he's getting at is lack of social justice. Personally, I won't even go around the world as he has done. Even domestically, there's no social justice in this country. We know that, but the voters are seemingly not concerned about this. In the 50s, 60s, and even 70s, there was a lot more support for socialist and, in a sense, left-wing ideas, and even reflected in the political sort of landscape. But in recent years, we've been all taken up by neoliberal issues and consumerism, and our own people are getting screwed. But my question to Dr. Jaya is really, how do we bring about that kind of change? Socialism in this country is a bad word, and I can tell you wage levels even for white-collar graduates, I can prove to you, hasn't improved the past 30 years. In fact, it's gone backwards. A fresh graduate now doesn't earn a lot more than a fresh graduate 30 years ago. But look at the cost of living and the cost of, and I've been to Sarawak. I've been long houses that are 10 minutes walk from the highway, no sewage system, no water, no electricity. But even in KL, PJ is not much better. You go and look at the PPR flats. Okay, after 60 years, we don't have a public housing program, which is fundamental. And that's something Singapore embarked on the minute they were kicked out of Malaysia. So even locally, these problems are massive. I wish PSM and Dr. Jaya well, but I grapple with this. How do we change people's mindset? Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Can we have a few more comments? Yes, Tan Sri.
My name is Omar, formerly a professor, but not very distinguished.
Science advisor.
And,
Science advisor.
and I'm not an economist, but from my perception, we have heard this term that we want an economy which is innovation-driven, private sector-led. That was the previous government's tagline, and I think it is still true today. But that may be the economic part for the big boys. Now we have to balance with the grassroots level, and this is where I thought the transformative economies comes in. But both of those depend on innovation. The innovation-driven private sector-led must be dependent on many kind of innovation, and one of the most important one will be technological innovation. But I got the impression that our players in the private sector, particularly the small companies, they are not technology or innovation savvy at all. There are no structures within the company that looks at the new needs for the new needs for technology of the company, and then you want to see what is coming up that can actually affect them or that they can ride on. On the transformative side, you still need the technology or innovation as well. And this is what is now called, or it may be called by some group, grassroots innovation. We have for a long time what is called YIM, Yayasan Inovasi Malaysia, in the old mosque. And that was supposed to look at grassroots innovation. That organization has gone into hibernation for many years. It's now being so while the big boy, while the economy, so for the big boys, the innovation-driven private sector that will be the thing that the new economic action council will be looking at, there must be something that is actually looking at this at the transformative, the local part. My concern has always been on the technology part, and we see the government is reviving the Economic Action Council. The scientific community is thinking that we do need an STI Action Council, because without the STI pillar, you cannot reach and you cannot achieve anything. So this is something that maybe the economy should all be saying that. Side by side, by the economic pillar, there must be the STI pillar, and that needs to be strengthened. And if there is a need for one, we establish one, an STI Action Council. I think nobody is paying enough attention for this part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tan Sri Omar, for those talks. I think the speakers could comment on that, and others can. You can also comment in your views now to any of the questions or comments raised, or raise your own points or raise points to the speakers. Anyone else? Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I represent the hawker from Kajang. By the way, I'm Wong. I'm Wong. I just come here to see Tan Sri. He's his fan. He doesn't know me. I see him on Facebook. Or check in on Facebook. I'm from FGB. I'm the builder for many years, for 30 years. Then after that, 10 years ago, I become farmer. 8 years ago, I run a restaurant in KL Tower. I'm running the restaurant now. And last year, I went to Kajang and set up a hawker store, Satay. Welcome to come to my starter shop. What I want to share here today is a concept of social enterprise. I come across social enterprise in Taiwan 5 years ago. I listened to a talk from a professor from one of the university, Furen Daxue in Taiwan. I think I went to UC Malaya and share last year, social enterprise professor from Taiwan. So now I started this concept in my restaurant. It's a Malaysia version. So what my request is, I hope Professor Dr. Madri is very near to my shop. I did propose to one of the university. I said, please come to my shop. And for your information, I have 18 staff, 1 Chinese, 2 Indian, 3 all are asleep. At the top, with the pig, we have 5 come and go. Now I have retreats, and then the rest are local Malays, 1 from Sabah. So with the limited budget, because my partner always question me, why you do this, do that, this all not making money one, They say, what's so special on my restaurant is, if you want to work for Kentucky or KFC, so you have to be minimum form 5. With your standard 6, standard 4, standard 3, form 3, they don't take you. So out of the 18 staff that I got, 1 of them got diploma, and then got 2 got form 5, and the rest of them, standard 4, standard 6, form 3, all drop out. So I'm taking in these people to work for me. It's not easy, very difficult. So what I want to request is, come and do a study, sign an NDA. I will let you do a study and see how could this concept work and grow the business. And this Malaysian version of social enterprise. Because I believe people at this level, that many of them, there's one guy came to me, you can't believe it, he came to me, but he left last week, came to me work for 2 weeks. Then he looked for a job, I offered him a job. But every other day he borrow money, so I know people earning basic wage, we have to borrow money, no money, 50 ringgit, 100 ringgit. But the problem is, every day his wife and the small kid came to my shop and wait for the husband to go home. You know where they stay? In Kajang. They live in the car, they have no home. They live in the car in Kajang town, They park the car not far away from I have a hostel. We do stay in the hostel. Then later I find out that he got a family. He live in the car. So eventually he left the job because the wife will come and catch out him, disturb him. Because then I find out the family, his wife, father is the Bangladesh, left the mother a long time ago. So the mother is the local Malay. So he didn't have a proper family. So complicated. I don't know how to help him. I offer him. I asked my chef, how could I help him? If really had problem, because my company is not big, I'm the boss, I'm the GM, I'm everything, I have to do it myself. I asked my chef, I said, ask him to go to the Jakarta Center. I did tell him, go to the Jakarta Center, maybe short term they can help you, but he didn't listen because communication. Hopefully, because UCAM is very near to me, I did appeal, to come to me, how could we work together and build this model and let more people change their life. So, of course, to do business, to make money, is every businessman wish, we have to make money to sustain. So, other than making money, I have this objective intention, but I need help, I need people to work together. This is my appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we can visit to help. We can visit to eat the satay as well. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Wong.
Assalamualaikum. Good afternoon. I'm Azman from the Association of Stockbroking Companies Malaysia. I just want to pose a question to my friend Mr. Tan, is it? From Kajang? Mr. Wong, Kajang. More importantly, when you talked about the academic qualifications of your staff, even if that person had standard 4 qualification, did you check his living certificate to see whether it's fake or not? Standard 4 guy, did you check his living certificate whether it's fake or not, the standard 4 education? Because if it's not fake, then this person has greater credibility than at least 6 of our cabinet ministers, who in my belief should resign immediately. I think a major problem we have in our country is that this thing about credibility and integrity. I think this is two values that has deteriorated a lot over time. Not just during the time when socialism was an honorable thing. Now it's become taboo or what. It's not like, actually most importantly is that, you know, in certain countries of the world, even the hint of scandal, a very high level minister will resign. In Japan, even the hint of scandal, the prime minister will resign. But here in Malaysia, he looks like me, he sounds like me, but it's not me actually. That is the excuse given. This is a major problem I seek some solace from. If there can be some answer to this. You see, the average Malaysian is a very good person, I can tell you that. I'm a stockbroker, there's a few stockbrokers in this room, among the biggest here, RHB. One of the biggest stockbrokers in Malaysia. I'm just, I won't say I'm small, I'm petite. I'm a petite organization, like Mr. Wall is from Affinage. RHB is the biggest, probably RHB Capital. And AM, very big boys. I think among us, between us, we have thousands and thousands of investors from the normal, you know, average Malaysian public, the mums and dads, you know, the hardworking Malaysians, you know, investing their hard-earned money into the stock market. And can you imagine how it feels like for a small investor, say one of my retail investors, when they struggle, when the market moves up and down, and they lose money, sometimes they make a little bit, they lose a little bit. When they find out that there are scandals which involve billions of dollars of money that's been siphoned off and cheated from them by the same people they've given power to. Can you imagine that average makcik that took money out from the EPF to buy Felda, FGV, and suddenly lose 70% of the savings because of the corruption inherent in those companies? Can you imagine that? So I think, Leonard Panel, maybe we should spend some time on this question of integrity in Malaysia. Okay. How do we enhance it, how we make it better? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that input. Yes, the right integrity, marketplace, very important thing.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm also from ACM. I read with interest. Okay. I read with interest Tan Sri Michael's article where he talked about the 10 strategic shift, and specifically I single out. He talked about digitization. He talked about the rise of e-commerce, and finally I pick up. He talked about the shift of center of gravity from the east to the west. All these are very critical observation from Tan Sri. And I also look at his one of his comments to say that the old ideas needs innovation, and the new problem, the old problem need innovation, and the new problem need new ideas. Very fair, very clear, very good. And in fact, I pick up the innovation part, and what I'm trying to pick up is that we talk about transformative economies, and at the crux of all these things, I'm not saying it is the only most important thing, but it is a fairly important thing, and that's education. When we talk about innovation, you need people who are able to think deeply, and the starting point is the education, and whether the country has done enough in this area to prepare ourselves to meet the challenges of the future. Also, when you know that we in the past 80 to 100 years, there has been a lot of copying of the West, and where you know now there is a shift of the center of gravity. Are our people ready to actually meet the challenges, leave alone talking about innovation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Emphasis back onto innovation. I thought you might talk about stock market and how to improve investment culture, but bankers and investors are talking about integrity more than money, which is very good. Dr. Hesri, you want to make an intervention? I don't see young people speaking up.
You have one.
Oh, yeah, more.
I take offense to the army army.
I always tell, every time I meet Professor Yusuf, he's looking younger and younger. I'm looking older and older. Okay. All right, I think we have had quite a number of interventions, some specific to the speakers, some general. So if we can say each of the speakers take about 5 minutes or so, and I thought I might include Tan Sri Michael because you were complimented quite well for your 10 points, and in case you want to make an intervention, that would be helpful as well. Can I reverse the order and start with Dr. Jay Kumar? Okay, pass the mic, and then you can just pass on.
Okay, Roy, you talked about people being poisoned by wealth, and then Richard, you talked about how to bring change and all that. I think, how altruistic people are, how concerned they are about other people, it also depends on the situation. I mean, like, let's say we take graduates now. They come out with such a lot of student debt, and then jobs are difficult to get. So many jobs are contractual jobs, they're not getting good jobs which are. So compared to my time, when graduates came out, no problem getting a job, and you didn't have student debt, So it's easy for my generation that time to be concerned to say I can go and work in rural area, I don't mind, I can spend time in voluntary organizations. So the extent to which people are altruistic or people are concerned about others also depends on how secure they are. We become a rich country, a rich society, but our people live in insecurity. We are more insecure now at all levels, not only the B40, even the M40. When you think of your old age, when you become 70 years old, you become 75, if you have the misfortune of living beyond that, who's going to look after you? Do you have savings? Your savings last then? Will your children be stable enough to look after you? Will they have a big enough home they can take you in? Putting people into small cubicles, hardly enough of them can they look after you? So the level of insecurity that we are all under, despite being richer and richer, look at the GDP, the per capita is going up. But we are becoming less able to look after each other, even our own families. Because the only way to be sure is to have a couple of more billions in the bank, another insurance policy. So if anything happens, you can look after yourself. But why is it that way? Why can't we pool our resources? Why can't we have an old age pension? Why can't we have good health care that can look after everyone? Why can't we have proper houses which are big enough that you can take in an old relative? For a rich country, why are we squeezing ourselves so much and distorting our value system as well? These are things I think we got to ask. We got to really think of transformative economies. We got to ask about that. I think the capacity for human beings to be caring about others is there. But it's not a fixed quantum. It all depends on the economy and society you're living in. And if you are made insecure, then how can you be so concerned about others when you're worried about yourself? So I think we are generating insecurity, and so we're generating not really selfishness, but you've got to be more self-centered. You've got to think about yourself and your family first. So I think we are actually damaging our national psyche. So I think these are things we've got to think about. And some of the issues you talk about, when you talk about PPR, I think the PPR problem is because it's a policy problem, where you're basically making these poor communities responsible for collecting the money and making the flats, which they can't do. Because many of them cannot afford to pay that amount. I think just recently, this survey done by Dr. Muhammad Khalid and UNICEF show there's so much malnutrition in those PPR flats. I think 17% or 20% of the kids were malnourished. So of course when they cannot pay money for their, this is the reason they can't pay, because they're not getting enough in the first place, you see. So I think the government, which is federal government, has so much surplus, talk about 2 billion or 3 billion. Take some of the money out, use it to run these flats, and place these flats under the responsibility of local councils. They take over money collection, take over running it, have the management corporation to give input, but the actual operational aspect of it, the executive part of it, local council take over. It can be done quite cheaply, and it can really help to the poorer families living there. So a number of things can be done. But I think we're still saying no. It's your flat, was from joint management corporation, you must run it, you must collect the money, which they can't do. Because all the guys in the committee are also working. Taxi drivers or whatever, they come and try and collect money, they get scolded before and give up. It doesn't work. So these are things actually we can solve a number of these things without difficulty. So I think you're talking about the way forward. The way forward, I think, is discussion, is talking about the real issues, is identifying it, it's educating the people. I think people can be educated. But if we have a political system that educates them on the wrong things, that divides us in terms of religion and race and makes us fight about those things, then obviously you're not going to identify the elephant in the room. That's why not also elephant, because we're fighting about themselves, you see. So I think that I think is what, it's happening all over the world, you see. In US, what do you have? You have Trump talking about immigrants and Mexicans and the border wall. And you also have people like Bernie Sanders talking about the need to tax the rich and have a better healthcare system and have better wages. So the same battle, Jeremy Corbyn in Britain, the same battle is going on. So I think we need people to start talking about what could be, Our wealth is so much. Just one last point, our GDP now is 1.3 trillion, 1,300 billion now. We were only 10 billion, 1970. Of course, inflation is times 4, but even with the inflation taken into place, in 1970, the total GDP for Malaysia was 10 billion. Now we are 1,300 billion. But people are under more stress now than before. So something is going on here, something is wrong here. So just growing the GDP even further is not going to solve the problem. It's a question of safety nets, it's a question of welfare programs, it's a question of old age pension, it's a question of not undermining our healthcare system. These are things that I think we've got to talk about. And I think this is the conversation we need to have in society, not just for the politicians or the academicians. The people have got to start talking and discussing and seeing that how can we build this up and counteract the dominant political debate is still very divisive, ethnically divisive. And we've got to see how we can have a counter debate which is not ethnic based but human being based, need based. And I think we all have a big role in that.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to echo what Prof. Jaya have mentioned. I really love even all the works that you have been doing. So we kind of share similar things. Now there are 3 things I would like to highlight. One is the issue of education. I really, I totally agree. I'm one of those jatuh kuasa that Dr. Mazli just, formed this jatuh kuasa for us to look into our education system. We were given the task for 6 months. We have completed about 4 months, and within that 4 months, I never felt so stressed out until I listened to all the discussions that were being brought in terms of our education. I think we are really in a big problem as far as our education. But the good thing about our education is that almost every other person, it doesn't regardless of the ethnicity, gender, or class or whatever, everybody is so concerned about our education system on how we can bring it up. And I think that is one area that I really think that politics should definitely be out of education. What is happening is that it has always been politicized. Everyone who plan to become a prime minister, they think that having a post as a minister of education is a step up to that level. So I must say that we have politicized our education to the level that it's really beyond me. You cannot imagine the things that are being taught in schools. We have 9 systems. Can you imagine? We must be in the Guinness Book of Record. We have the national system, we have the vernacular system, we have the TAFIs, we have homeschooling, we have international, altogether we have 9. So we will be in the Guinness Book of Records other than that. Okay, so education, yes, we must look into it. On one hand is the quantity, and on the other hand is definitely the quality. There's a lot to be, that we really need to look into. And the other thing that I think we did really discuss in depth is about, not really in depth, I would like to see the role of, the third sector, Professor, you all have been in the NGOs and everything, the role of the third sector in terms of promoting development. We have been hijacked by the role of the politicians. The politician seems to hijack almost every other thing, They seems to be the one who seems to know more. But maybe because we as a society, we allow it. The voices of the people are often not heard. Only on occasion like this, and even look at the crowd. We are even thinking, is it going to go on or not today's event? This kind of discussion. Now, you have not gone to the university. Who is concerned about societal issues? Nobody is concerned because KPI is a different level. We want to be seen as, this one Professor Raja can help us with that. We will be given like all this KPI, and then we are there, but we're not there. Society's problem is nobody ever discussed in the university. They are concerned about how many journals and which Q1 journals they are going to be in. I think Prof. Dennison, you can also help us on that. And so you see the role of public intellectuals. Where are we? Where are our voices? We are so good in almost every other thing, and we just leave it to the politics. So, balik Cikgu Ayu, I know you have done a lot of work with our childcare children. Because I volunteered once in a while, they were giving tuition for kids at a parking lot. Because there was nothing, they don't have a place. So they did it at a parking lot. So there we were, I was enjoying myself. So enjoying the sense that now I'm with them. But I'm so glad that Julie Biscuit managed to give you a place there. But there are not many people like Cikgu Rayu, who are concerned about, undocumented children, right? Most of them, I'm glad that the new system. So meaning to say, we should not just allow the state to play the role or just allow the private sector. We as a society, we as a community, we also have a role to play. So I really, if I hear the voices here, I think most of us really have that in mind. Meaning to say, we also, we must have our voice. It's what I remember, Professor Syed Hussein Al-Atas, he used this very interesting term, bebalisma, bebal. In the Malay term, bebal is a very negative term. But the term bebalisma means you have knowledge, but you're not using knowledge for the benefit of the goodness of everything. So you mean to say you are intelligent, you have all the accolades to your name, but you have not done anything to bring the better good. So I said, oh my God, that is what bebal. The word Malay bebalisma, it sounds very negative, but what he meant here is that if you have the knowledge, do something for the good of society. On one last point, I would love to see more of this kind of engagement, Tan Sri, because if you look across the board here, if you go to the university, it is always it's a mono-ethnic kind of thing. You go to another university, like the other day I went to, I've always been to UKM, so it's almost 99.99%, what ethnic group. Then recently I went to Sunway, almost the same thing also. I said, oh my God, Malaysia is so polarized. Poor Iban like me, don't know where I can find. So, but I'm glad my friend is here, Richard. Richard Tap, he is one of those very shining Iban. You don't have many bankers, but we have him here. I'm very, very proud of him. Thank you so much for supporting me. Okay, I think that's all, just to share that. Okay, Professor, thank you.
Maybe you can build university for Iban.
No, definitely.
Okay, I like to touch on intervention from Tan Sri Omar. Actually, very correct. I haven't got time to explain. There are many dimensions or elements in the, I call it PE, transformative economy. Definitely, one of them is innovation and technology. Then I can set two cases. One for big boy, Mondragon. They depend almost all the time to survive. It's not that easy. It looks easy, but they invent. That means they have high level of innovation and technology adopted in the business. Secondly, at the local level, municipality in Chicago, USA, also they come up with something to make sure that F&B business, after all, under this TE also, you have to cluster your business. Cluster, say for example, in Kajang, what is the comparative advantage in Kajang? So you venture into that. Yeah, then so many people can benefit of that. Kajang people, things like that. That is element of transformative economy, innovation, technology. It's a driver for their survival. And the other thing is the comment from Zara. This is also element of transformative economy. There is resource allocation and circular economy. Meaning to say, the state and the business, the market should allocate resources to the place where the most people need, human needs, and also the circulation of that economic benefit should be within the community, not go outside. For example, if you employ foreign workers, Indonesia or Bangladesh, they bring the money, they send the money a lot to their country. When I studied foreign level study last time with Chris Edward, my friend from Malaysian. At that time, in the 90s, Bangladesh sent 600 ringgit per month per person. Indonesia sent 800 ringgit. This is example that the money does circulate in the community. Yeah. In fact, the community of Indonesia, they have their own economy within the economy parallel to Malaysian economy. This is I don't call it black economy, but it's a parallel economy taking place. This is no good to the local community, if you like. So if you promote transformative economy, it's the thing that you should take care. But you cannot take care alone. That's why all stakeholders, the government, for example, Majlis Perbandaran Kajang, for example, should come in. But I think Majlis Perbandaran Kajang, even they cannot solve the garbage problem. How do they talk about development? I'm a resident of Barcelona.
How to make money from the garbage?
But that's why I think you have to relook at the role of local government now. It's very timely that they put some money for investment to invest for their own people. Creating micro enterprise which they have in their own area, so that people are empowered, and the money circulate within that, not go outside the region or the municipality, if you like. I think that's all my comment. I can comment on NGO, but there are a lot. So I think just to mention a few, apart from comment that we promote people-centered development. I think from decades ago, we don't know how to market ourselves. That's why people don't know very much about ourselves. But we were the first to think global, act local. That's the term from local, and not from Malaysia, from Najib Noh, from COMEC. COMEC was established in Goa, in India, many years ago. Okay, COMEC, Commonwealth countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, Australia, UK. NGO now, there are a lot of NGO, even retired university lecturer in UKM, for example, just to mention economic community, we form NGO to help the poor, for example, the people in the street, we give them food, provide teaching and learning skill for English, mathematics, for students, say, in semi-rural area, So actually this show that actually the third government, we like NGO play the role, and it will also show that there are a lot of problems with the current economic in Malaysia. Otherwise, it's quite easy to find people hunger now. But in Kuala Lumpur, for example, quite easy to identify people without home. They are homeless. So this is very true. When you distribute food, if you have 100 packs, I think less than 1 hour not enough. So that to that extent, this is what I mean, quite sickening lah, when sometimes your head in Malaysia bring quite high, 5%, 6%. But that's why I said, I come back to my thesis just now, that the framework is still there. So you don't change the framework. So that's why you are not talking about transformative economy. When you transform, that means you change, structural change. You don't change, you know. That's why. But you use the term. 11 Malaysia Plan midterm, we use the term inclusive development. But actually I think they don't understand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I have 3 points to make here. I think it's difficult to take each question directly. So, although I like very much the questions, let me address them this way. Inclusive development. I was the evaluator of the report on human development. The human development report that was led by Tan Sri Kamal, where Muhammad Khalil was one of the authors with Lee Hock An. I don't think they ever completed completely what I expected them to do. Inclusive development, by definition, required the involvement of the target group. It's not just about seeing whether poverty lines are falling, whether the measure is right, whether these guys are living happily. That are indicators, consequences you see. But inclusive development requires their participation in some ways to shape their destiny. It's to a large extent the type of language that Frantz Fanon used long ago when you're dealing with the poor. So my feeling is, if you're dealing with this Raukens here, you were just looking at those figures, we'll be very happy that the Gini coefficient for overall, because of the one Malaysia DRM brilliant. Now it has fallen from 0.402 in 2014 to 0.399. It looks really nice. But is that really indicative? It's not. Now that you then will have to go and see what really the people want and how they want it. They think their demands can be met. I would rather use the word needs. Their needs can be met, because demand talks about capturing what the capacity to pay. Now I think that that's a problem I find. As an evaluator, UN guy was just telling me that we keep this dragging on and on, we can't publish this. So in the end it came out as a report, but it didn't really, I wouldn't call it inclusive as such in the way that research is done. The second point is you discussed really, Dr. Yusof discussed about largely what I would call social corporatism. As a student myself, I read about it from 1989. It's one of the models. And it has its origins from the guild system in Europe. Long ago, during the Renaissance, when, and even Marx talking about it, and lived with the guilds people in Brussels before he moved to England. Now, the form that you were mentioning is the form that Mondragon's got. I also read those articles on agriculture. And you can easily talk about Emilia-Romagna in Italy, which produces some of the best, most expensive furniture. There you have the guy who leads the business, you will call Meister craftsman in Germany. And then you have the apprentice. You don't really have workers, and they regulate it in such a way, they are participants in the process. You don't need unionization there. In fact, these guys are not unionized, because they are their members there. Now, that is a form that can be organized in ways where you can be competitive, highly competitive, and at the same time ensure that the returns that each member, here they are not workers as such, are appropriating enough gains, sharing the gains. But this form has existed and it's been experimented in certain places where they think it's important. An example would be in Taiwan, where the government follows like what we do. We give a minimum guaranteed price to buy something like oil palm. If prices fall below a certain line, a certain band, we buy the oil palm. The state buys that so that you stabilize prices. And that money is not just for helping the poor, but also used to little innovation. And actually the UN language is frugal innovation. They use the term frugal rather than grassroots. So you have a situation where rice self-sufficiency in Taiwan is 90%. The highest we had is 87% in 1975 when Tun was still around. Now, there you have smart robots who've been programmed. You don't need to wait there and see how they function. No, they actually milk the cows, they manure the fields, many things they do. We didn't see any transformation. This is part of our oil farm. We instead brought foreign workers here. Many of that can simply be automated, and not in a way where you see concentration in the hands of the owner, but in a way where you could have diffused the Felder framework, diffused through small holders, small guys. So that, and in fact, today they call it the industrial district argument. In fact, you use the word prosperity. Michael Piori and Chuck Sable from MIT, they are very interesting book, 1984, discusses all this, how small guys. And I like what Schumpeter actually didn't envisage these developments. He thought you needed all these big firms because they can have the capital to finance R&D, internalizing large firms, you get the money to take the risk, face uncertainty, and you need them to initiate new cycles of innovation because the other small guys, the frugal guys, are only adapting. What he didn't envisage is these guys, for very many years now, can connect with public labs, can connect with labs in universities and incubators in science parks, provided that network has evolved sufficiently well, and they can innovate at a very high level. A Malaysian that has transformed a $900,000 firm when he started in 2003 into a firm with more than $1 billion is Paul Kensing from Sekinchan, the pen drive inventor. He's actually from his master's thesis. I was there on the ground. He actually applied to get an incubator. He was rejected. And he couldn't speak English very well. He was Mandarin educated, but he spoke to me in Malay. Now I'm just mentioning, it's not that we couldn't have done this, we couldn't have done that, and we could have formed a structure, an organizational framework where workers could have become participants. It's part of social corporatism. In fact, that element even includes, there was an experiment that they discontinued using the Toyota framework. Saturn, the car Saturn, the workers were on the company. Now we can go back to that if you want. The last point I'd like to make is on macroeconomic modeling. The old ILO framework for macroeconomic modeling took care of underconsumption. Because if you allow, this is what Henry Ford used to say, you pay low wages, you get monkeys. You want to have high quality workers and the workers to buy your cars, you will have to pay higher wages. And he actually used that sort of framework before, which was part of Fordism, although Fordism has some negative elements, but that part of it is, I think, still very strong. So you then will see that the whole economy is participating in shaping the demand and appropriating demand, not this tiny concentration of people who have the money and resources allocated for their whims and fancies, rather than detaching or displacing all these people who would not be participants in the process. Now the old ILO model, in fact I'm trying to bring the guy here, I know him very well, Moazam, I don't know whether you know him, he's a PhD from SOAS, retired, not from IDF, some time ago, but I'm trying to bring him to do the modeling here. I met him while advising the Pakistan government on some things. He was doing something that I think it can be done. Then you will see that wages are incorporated into the whole model. The model itself doesn't tell you this is what the real economy is working as such, because GDP, as you know, is generated from national accounts. And it's really meant for forecasting. It's not one where you add all this real value and then total it up and that's GDP. No, it's all projected. Likewise, if you use this model, then that model becomes the basis of making sure you have a balanced economy. And workers can see that the unemployment rate would not be that high. Remember, there is one complete piece of nonsense that we should also understand. The way unemployment is measured in Southeast Asia is the general ILO measure of the past. If a worker is found to be working 2 weeks a week during the time of enumeration, the worker is employed. But underemployed. In fact, there was a time when I was studying, using Tian Chua as my field researcher in Philippines. He was at the time my RA. At that time, underemployment exceeded 50%. Unemployment was only, this is the height of the Asian financial crisis, was over 15%. So I feel these things can be done, and such things doesn't require rocket science. They are there. It's a question how we search and what sort of political will we have to implement that. That's my view about these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Prof. A lot of ideas and thoughts. I think before Tan Sri Michael, yes, our from Sabah, Singapore, where can we get the mic?
The 3S that joined Malaysia. 1963.
Thank you, Dr. Dennison, my good friend. I'm Isak O from Singapore Institute of International Affairs, but as Dr. Dennison said, I'm actually from Sabah. So I'm
just to balance.
Yeah, the other is Malaysian here. I think I have 2 points here. One macro and one micro, not necessarily macroeconomically or microeconomically, but certainly one more macro, namely, I think that the government of Malaysia should get out of our, shall we say, the market or the running of the Malaysian economy, the participation in the Malaysian economy as much as possible. We call ourselves a capitalist country, but there's a high level of government involvement in our economy. There are various government corporations which compete with the private sector. I think the government should sort of retreat back to its more regulatory role to make sure that there's a fair competition and so on, instead of being an active market participant, because the private sector hopefully could utilize itself more, could have more room to make our economy more vibrant, instead of being saddled with essentially semi-civil servants running a large part of our economy. Number two, at a more Sabah regional level, I listened with interest to what Dr. Madeline talked about and compare the East Malaysia, West Malaysia, and so on. I shuttled between Sabah, KL, and Singapore quite a lot. And over the years, I'm more and more convinced that perhaps Sabah, at least Sabah, perhaps not Sarawak, it's sort of infected with, I think Professor Raja can correct me, there's a term called resource curse, right? And I take that to... And I take that and I understand that as being no matter who is in charge, they will be tempted and they will help themselves with the bountiful resources, and the people will continue to suffer. I think Sabah is a classic example of that, and I think perhaps what we can do is only to sort of improve the situation a little bit. Recently, I think in recent years, there is a movement in Sabah, for example, somewhat grassroots, but of course still elite-led movement to, for example, make use of some of those waste products, plastics, and so on. For example, to make them into decorative items, earrings, even purses, and so on, and to sell them at mid to high markets. The idea is, for example, if you were to tell people not to throw away those plastic bags and so on, they might listen to you for a short while and then they're going to do it again. But if they can somehow, with a little bit of artistic guidance, make them into items which can actually earn them quite a lot of money, then perhaps they are more persuaded to continue to not throw away those items. My wife, for example, is very actively involved in this, and I think we need to be more creative in thinking of such ventures, or some may call it social enterprises, involving, for example, those in the rural areas as well, as my wife is doing, such that innovation is not necessarily something which which must involve high tech, like aerospace and so on. But if you can somehow make use of the daily items which you could, for example, save from throwing them away and make them into something more artistic and thereby making you more money, I think perhaps you can kill two birds with one stone, increasing the income of the rural community and also preserving our environment a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that intervention. Tan Sri Michael, if you want to have a few words before I wind up.
Yeah, just a few comments. Dr. Vijay, thank you for allowing me to say a few words as well. I think if we really want to achieve transformative economies, I think a few things we need to change. Firstly, we have to politicize, de-ethnicize our economic policies. We have to move away from race-based affirmative action to needs-based affirmative action, and adopt a human rights approach to development. In point Denison and I have been emphasizing in many meetings and councils as well. Secondly, I think we need to also change our underlying philosophy from wealth creation to ensuring that no one is left behind. I think unless that underlying philosophy is changed, we won't be able to really do much to help the poor. Thirdly, I think the whole country needs to have a sense of urgency in tackling the problems of inequality. We need quick action plans to ensure that the problems of inequality are addressed and corrected. Final point is ensuring that there are effective monitoring mechanisms put in place so that we would be able to have constant review, constant monitoring of the effectiveness of various actions that are being taken. Just a final point is, I would like to suggest that perhaps we maintain this conversation. Email Denison, email me, email Vun if you have any other ideas, suggestions that you'd like to bring up. We can continue to take into account your views and feedback. The next thing that I think that Dr. Denison and I will be working on, we're already having discussions with Speaker of Parliament, and we're hoping that the Speaker will soon be initiating an all-party parliamentary group on sustainable development, and that would include MPs from both sides of the political divide to continue the engagement with MPs and drawing in civil society and academicians as well. So thank you very much, Dr. DJ.
Thank you. Thank you, Tan Sri Michael. I think thank you to all the panelists for their words of wisdom, reflections, thoughts, and also to all the participants, those who spoke and did not speak, but I'm sure you were speaking in your hearts and minds over the various themes. And this is not the end of the conversation, but we'll move on. Like Michael, who closed with 5 points, I would very quickly mention 5 things that actually came from the discussion. It's not per se from my thoughts, but in hearing what you all have said in the notes, I was trying to vigorously write and keep in touch and try and get the notes, especially Prof. Rasea raised so many different books, thinkers' thoughts at various times. I think it would be good for us to have this conversation more, maybe a lecture or two, to get the fundamentals going. Now, I come up with these 5 thoughts that you all shared, and it could be 5 take-home points. First is that people need to be at the center of the economy. It could be markets, money, technology, innovation, but it's actually people. And I think that came out quite strong, whether it was from the slides, from the conversation, and so forth. And I like this term, grassroots innovation or frugal innovation at the heart of it. Now, most development planning actually says it's people-centered budget, it's people-centered development, the forward by all the prime ministers, and even now midterm review puts that as a cliche. But I think what's come out quite clearly is that we need to get ordinary people to talk about the economy, what are the issues, and what kind of change that needs to take place. Not just by politicians and academicians or think tank, but really to the grassroots. And that is why in the past, when government set up the National Economic Consultative Council, which was MAPEN 1 and MAPEN 2, they had a huge committee of 150 people. I think Tan Sri Michael was part of both 1 and 2. And they brought people from across the board and so forth. And then they worked out, I was part of the second one, with Professor Ismail Saleh, who was the chief rapporteur, Ishak Shari, the late professors, both late professors, but they were outstanding in the work, the articulation, the feedback they received, and how government took many of those recommendations into the way. And I think we need that, not just to talk about it, but to really know the issues. So review the issues, find solutions, not just elitist model. Second, I think which came out, and it's refreshing, but it's important, because local discussions tend to dismiss it, is to articulate the global trends and challenges, the super rich, the MNCs, how it impacts factory, the migrant worker, the investment. So that whole dynamics need to come in because it's impacting domestic wages, policies, and we cannot just do it in isolation of the global trends, whether it's China, US, India, and so forth. And I think that came out quite strong in our discussion today. Third is actually the development agenda. What is development? Inclusive development, sustainable development, multi-dimensional nature of development. What is poverty? How do you measure it? Because statistically, there is very few poor in the country. But in reality, there is so much of poor people around us who cannot cope with the issues. But statistically, there are no poor. Mana orang miskin.
If the statistics don't lie, statisticians do.
I think the people who the statistician would say, okay lah, with that. But that's the reality. But the development agenda, how do we frame it? I think Prof brought this idea of balance and so forth. Fourth, I think a theme that Professor Yusuf illustrated and Professor Rasia as well, of all the possible changes that could really take place in alternative models, whether it's social enterprise, solidarity economy, global movements, to look at other pictures, whether the model should be big estates, small developers, FALDA, this kind of thing. More serious discussions on the models around the world, which I think Europe, the transformative economic process is trying to capture that and not just look at the big multinational KFCs or big companies as the model that we want to build. So I think that's something researchers as well as policy thinkers need to. I think finally at the heart of it is actually values and institutions. Michael brought that out. I think H.A. Aslan, is it? He brought it out in terms of values, integrity, no lying, no falsification. I think at the heart of everything is our ethics and values, and to what extent in the political divide are we consistent to that. But also what Michael brought out is the institutional monitoring, the reform, the anti-corruption, strengthening of those institutions that are critical. But values, I mean, who would think that lying can become a cultural trait now? That means to lie. And as long as you are
very important too now.
So to lie. But you know, all parents, even the poor, would not normally lie. But integrity is something we now need to teach when it was our social capital in the strength. So these thoughts and many thoughts that you have taken notes or struggled with. Folks, thank you very much for spending your afternoon here. As I went out, I brought my cup of coffee because I was rushing from one meeting to another. Sorry, I was late because the meeting started late in Putrajaya as well, and trying to rush here at that time. But thank you very much. I think we must say a word of thanks to Tan Sri Michael the Kasi Institute for facilitating this, for Carol, for Boone, other staff who have helped put this together and organize. Let's give a hand to the